Bye-bye, my love, goodbye. Bye-bye, my love, goodbye. Bye-bye, my love, goodbye.
Bye-bye, love from the Everly Brothers on WGZS. Joining me now on the phone line is Mr. Todd Eckart. Good morning, Todd.
Hey, good morning, JP. How you doing today?
Good. So I got to tell everybody, in the interest of disclosure, Todd is one of my best friends, and he's been performing music for many, many years. And tomorrow you're doing something that I haven't seen you do this before, but you're doing an Everly Brothers tribute show. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we put this thing together probably about 3-4 months ago. We came up with the idea and figured it had never been done before. I know the Everly Brothers performed at the Armory back in the day, where Buddy Holly used to play. I think back in 61 or 62 when they were at their peak, they performed there, and I figured, nobody was doing the Everly Brothers, and I got together with my good friend John Seguin, who is a terrific singer, John in his own entity, and we started singing these songs just at some of our shows across town, and they just sounded so great. We were just thinking, this is a great idea, let's put that together. And so then we called on the Fractals, my favorite band in the Northland, featuring Jimmy Cooper and Darren Wallace, Marvin Pomeroy, and Barry Percola. And we figured, hey, what a better backing band to have for you for something that's authentic like that, to create that sound. And it just kind of came about. And I figured I wanted to give the Northland something different than like an Elvis show or a Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra show, something a little bit different. So
let's let me just interrupt you for a second. That's all stuff you do, though.
Yeah, that's other shows that I've done too. I've done some tribute shows in that aspect too, and then I've got another one under the fire that I'm not at liberty to reveal at this time.
It's not Michael Jackson, is it?
It's not Michael Jackson, no.
Okay.
My dancing moves are far from over.
Okay, so I want to talk about some of these songs, and we're going to play a little bit of them. But now, one of the things that I think is interesting about your shows, you are very well known, and people know you for doing Elvis and maybe Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, and then your own kind of hot toddy stuff that you do in clubs and theaters and places like that. Not so much the bar scene, but you that you've been playing and doing for many years. And music has taken you out to Los Angeles. So remind me to ask you about that in a few minutes. But you call the shows. I remember one time hearing you talk about this in front of a crowd. You were out at must have been Spirit Valley Days or something like that in Duluth, and you talked about the difference between an impersonation and a tribute. And I just find that the emotional intensity that you're connected to the music really interesting. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, impersonations are totally different. Those are people that mimic word for word. They stay in character throughout the whole show. And to me, I'm not really a fan of that, just because there is only one person that made that music, or how many people it was, and nobody can ever replace him. So, as a musician, I'm just kind of singing songs for people that I reveled, growing up through the years, and most of those people, are not with us anymore. So I figure I just kind of put my own little fix on it. I sound enough like the performers, but as far as like staying in character, I try to do more of like a storytelling thing and kind of educate people on where that music came from, how a song was written. A lot of little details that people don't know about the artist. So it puts a different spin on the whole show.
And is that something that John does too? John Seguin, who's performing with you?
John's very informative as well. He comes up with little things as well that even I don't know. So it's great. He's really good at that as well. So
those guys. Now, tell me a little bit about the Everly Brothers, and let's. I'll tell you what. I came in here today thinking, we got some Everly Brothers around here. I could not find more than I found Kathy's Clown. That's what I found. And and so anyway, so through the magic of the internet age, I went on and I purchased a legal copy of this thing that's got like 55 Everly Brothers songs. So I'm guessing that a lot of the songs you're going to sing I have here, and we can play at least a few seconds of it, and you can tell us about it. But tell me
sure.
how
That's
they get
fine.
started, and tell me a couple of the songs you're going to play, and we'll just preview them a little bit here.
Well, just a little tidbit of information for everybody. I mean, Everly Brothers came from a very musical family. Their dad's name was Ike Everly, and they were born down in the South, down in Kentucky, and him and his wife had their own radio show, and then Phil and Don, they were only 2 years apart from each other, Don being the older Everly brother, and he's the guy that did a lot of the leads, and then Phil did a lot of almost all the harmonies. So they started off doing a radio show, just what you're doing.
They weren't trading harmonies, really. They were not necessarily.
Yeah, most of the time, Don, I'd say, was doing the melody part, and then Phil was doing the harmony part. There's a few songs like "Love of My Life" where Don is actually singing the harmony part, and then Phil is doing that. And the thing is that they were growing up down in the South. Chet Atkins, the famous guitar player, was a big fan of the family, and he did a lot of studio sessions for a lot of those songs that you hear. The one that you played earlier, "Bye Bye Love," that was their very first single, and it went to number 2 actually in 1957. And the only song that got in its way was "Jailhouse Rock" by Elvis Presley.
Did you say so? There's so much there, isn't there, Todd? So I was just going to ask you one question, then I had another one. But Chet Atkins produced some of these songs. Is that what you were saying?
I'm saying that he was very much involved as far as like arrangements and guitar parts. He played on the stuff as well. Yep. And in fact, one of the songs, a lot of people didn't realize that the Everly Brothers toured with Buddy Holly when Buddy Holly first started out. And back then, Buddy Holly was just wearing Levi's and T-shirts. But the Everly Brothers were wearing these Ivy League type suits. There are these matching suits, with the real thin tie, and Buddy Holly and the Crickets changed their appearance when they went on tour with the Everly Brothers, and that's why you see Buddy Holly in suits now with ties and bow ties. So basically, when Buddy Holly died in 1959, they recorded a song and wrote a song, the Everly Brothers themselves, called "Till I Kissed You," and all the Crickets were playing. The band was the background group on that song, the drummer and the bass player.
All right, I'm going to bring this in a little bit here. That's them. That's the Crickets.
Buddy Holly and the Crickets?
No, this is "Till I Kissed You." Are you saying that they're that's the Critics? Oh, wait. I got a mess there. I don't know what the heck that was.
It's called "Never Knew What It Was Until I Kissed You." It might be labeled under "Until I Kissed You" or "Till I Kissed You." It was a song that came out in like 1959. It's one of the songs that the Everly Brothers wrote. A lot of people didn't realize. They wrote Kathy's Clown, too, in 1961, and that was a #1 song. So they had 5 #1 songs between 1957 and 1962.
Okay, but "Bye Bye Love," which I think of as their biggest, well, maybe that I don't think of that as the biggest hit. But
"Wake Up Little Susie" and "All I Have to Do Is Dream," the Dream, Dream, Dream song. That was #1. "Bird Dog" was #1. Kathy's Clown was #1. And they also had some songs that were in the top 40. They had, I think, 35 top 40 hits, which is quite a bit back then.
Yeah, let's listen to a little bit of this one.
Okay.
In my arms when I want you, and all your charms whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream.
What are we hearing there, Todd?
That's "All I Have to Do Is Dream." That's Chet Atkins on guitar. That song went right to #1, 1958. Probably one of their biggest ballad hits. They were known for those wonderful harmonies. And at the time when they recorded that, Don was 20 years old and Phil was only 18.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I know. It's just young kids.
And you were talking before. This was the other question I wanted to ask you. So in addition to Chet, that's Chet Atkins on guitar.
Yeah.
anyway,
yeah, the vibrato and everything. Yeah, he's got that beautiful sound.
In addition to that, so they're competing with Elvis. I'm not competing, but I mean they're on the scene with Elvis.
Yeah.
You talked about Buddy Holly and the Crickets. What was going on with, how are they interacting and intermixing in the, in what we think of as like that early part of the rock era?
I think they were. I mean, you had Elvis, and he was kind of like controversial, and then you had Ricky Nelson, who reveled Elvis, but he was more of a cleaner cut version, to the families. And then you had the Everly Brothers, and they were very clean cut as well. And a lot of people didn't realize, like the song "Wake Up Little Susie," was banned on some radio stations back in the day because there's a line in there, something about like we fell asleep in the movie theater. It's 4 a.m. Our goose is cooked. We're going to get in trouble when we get back home. So, there was a lot of hidden innuendos there as far as like, did the kids actually fall asleep in the theater, or what were they doing? Because, I mean, curfew back then was like 10 o'clock for teenagers,
Okay, hold on.
So.
The ooh la la, that was probably one of the big controversies there, huh, Toddy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, ooh la la. Yeah, so, I mean, that song was controversial. That was also another big hit, #1 song. And I would say the Everly Brothers are probably, they were the inspiration, as a fact, for the Beatles, for their harmonies. Simon and Garfunkel, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I mean, any of those groups before anybody else, I mean, there was the Everly Brothers with those wonderful harmonies, and they did harmonies different. They did like a harmony called a parallel third harmony, where they're both basically singing the melody line, but it's on like a third parallel, and that's why it works so well.
Is there something there about them being brothers? You think of there's some other brother or sister groups that are out there.
I think they had a major connection. I mean, obviously, when you're working with family members through the years, I mean, you're going to have your ups and your downs. You know what I mean? But I think when they were on stage together, I mean, they were as calm and cool and collective as they just kind of read each other's minds. I mean, they just, it's almost like twins. They when you're related like that, you know exactly when the next person's going to hit the next note at the exact moment, the exact second.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that helped them even more, being so tight like that, because they were brothers, and they both sounded a lot alike. They had the same kind of tones in their voice, so it really blended well and almost sounded like one voice sometimes.
All right, I'm going to bring this one up. This is one that I don't think of as an Everly Brothers song.
Some joy.
Yeah, that's an old song there.
Is this one of the songs you studied for your? I know that.
I already knew the song because Dean Martin made that a big hit. I think the Four Lads have done it like over the years too. In the early '50s, maybe late '40s, that song came out, and then Dean Martin made it a hit in 1955. But I think they recorded that in like '59. So I was so used to the Dean Martin version you hear of that song, but when they did it, it was really, really kind of bittersweet,
Let's listen.
Yeah, you hear that guitar? I mean, that's Chet Atkins there. I mean, that's beautiful stuff. So we're gonna try and do it almost just like the record, actually, and then talk in between and tell stories.
And you've got Barry Percola and Jimmy Cooper.
Barry's going to be making a special guest appearance he's playing lap steel, I think, on one of the tunes, and Jimmy Cooper is he's also a teacher up at UMD, and he gives lessons and all that stuff, and he plays it exactly like the record. I mean, it's amazing. He's got that Chet Atkins sound, and you got Super D on the bass, and then, of course, Marvin Pomeroy on drums. It's going to be a really wonderful, beautiful rendition, this concert, of all their songs. We're doing, can't tell you how many songs we're doing, but quite a few.
Yeah, and you and John have worked on this now. Is this kind of a one-off thing, or because I know, and I wanted to ask you about your music career, where you and I started out DJing actually, and then you did the music thing, and I did some. We kind of have moved along in our careers, but music to you got to a point where I felt like you needed to go out to Los Angeles.
Yeah, I moved out there about 5 years ago with my gal. She lives out there, and she's a musician too. And she's in a circle of people out there in that rockabilly kind of country roots music, where I got introduced to a lot of great artists out there. And I mean, moving to a big city like that is a big it's a big change compared to living in Duluth. But I'll tell you what, you just got to work harder. It just makes you want to work harder when you're in a bigger city like that, because you got to really stretch yourself out, and you got to go. You just got to give it a little bit more gas.
and you tour the country, you go on tours, and in fact, when you come back here, I think of it almost as a tour because you're doing shows around.
Yeah,
here.
I come back during the summer for a couple of months, and it's I'm really blessed to be able to do that. And I got family here. I got a daughter here, and I got grandkids, and so it gives me a chance to catch up with my family as well. So.
And where I was going with the original question is, so is this something you see you and John possibly turning into, something that goes around and tours and does events and does, theaters and corporate events and stuff?
I see great possibilities in this. I hate to learn all these songs and only do them once. We'd like to take the show on the road. We've talked about that. And the guys, I think, would be willing to do that. Do casinos, do Las Vegas, maybe Branson, stuff like that. Because I think this music still needs to be heard, And there's not many Everly Brother tribute shows anymore. They're not going on. And Don and Phil are still alive. I think they're 74 and 72, and they're still alive.
You talk about them being in the Beatles say they're an influence for them. They're playing with Buddy Holly, and we know that who's the guy from Bobby V and Bob Dylan and all those people were all they're all part of the same pool of influence. Do you think of the Everly Brothers as being just a little bit underrated?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're great. I think people maybe kind of forget about them. I ask people on the street, about the concert, and a lot of people can't really name a lot of their songs. And then once I start maybe humming them and telling them, they're like, "Oh my gosh, they did that song. They did that song." A lot of people didn't realize they were really big friends with Roy Orbison too. And they went on tour with Roy Orbison in the early '60s when Roy Orbison came here to the Armory as well. And he was majorly influenced by their sound, and he actually signed on to the record label that the Everly Brothers were on there for a while.
He was an influence for Roy Orbison. These guys were kind of trading influence with Roy Orbison as well.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, they do a couple of Roy Orbison songs that Roy Orbison did. They did the original version of Love Hurts. You remember the rock and roll version from Nat with Love Hurts? Well, the Everly Brothers do a really beautiful job on that song. That's
the Roy Orbison song?
Roy Orbison covered that. I'm not really particularly sure who wrote it. One of those two wrote it, but I...
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Let's listen to a minute of this, or a few seconds of this.
Okay.
Love hurts, love scars, love wounds, and Mars.
It's almost... It's... And that's what I was going to say, when you were talking about memories are made of this, it's almost like it's a different song, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, they turned it into their own sound. The song "When Will I Be Loved," a lot of people probably remember the Linda Ronstadt version more than the Everly Brothers, but I mean, they wrote that song, "When Will I Be Loved."
The version of that I love is the Vince Gill version.
Vince Gill? Yeah, see, and Vince Gill recorded that. I mean, that's an Everly Brothers tune. Another great song is called "Crying in the Rain," which is probably one of my favorite songs that they do. And then also a lot of people didn't realize that at the peak of their career, they had to go into the Marine Corps.
What?
For about 9 months at the peak of their career. I mean, can you imagine? 1961, you know, you have your number one song, Kathy's Clown, that they wrote, and then they couldn't perform for quite a while. And when you leave the music scene like that, when it's so big back then, I mean, they lost a lot of motivation. And so...
All right, let's listen to this here.
I'll do my crying in the rain. Raindrops falling from heaven could never wash away my misery.
What did they do when they came back then?
What they did was they did a lot of speed. No, to be honest with you, what they did was they switched to another label called Warner Brothers. Their original record label was Cadence, and that's where they had a lot of those big hits. And what the problem was is they got back from the Marine Corps, and then their management team wasn't giving them the songs anymore. They weren't, because they had like a songwriting group that was responsible for writing a lot of those Everly Brothers hits, and then they weren't handed those songs anymore. And then, of course, the British invasion took place, in late '63, and after that, I mean, it was they just couldn't keep up with it anymore. They did record some songs that were very Beatle-esque, or I shouldn't say that, Everly-esque. There was a big song that they did. It was called "Gone, Gone, Gone," and that was featured, in Canada as like a number one song, and they were really big in Europe still. They kind of lost their steam in America when the Beatles came, but they were still huge in Canada and Europe. I mean, still selling records throughout the 60s. And a lot of people didn't realize that song, "Gone, Gone, Gone," was just recorded just a few years ago from Alison Krauss and Robert Plant. It was on that Raising Sands album that won a Grammy just a few years ago.
Yep, we got that one here. So, if you had to pick, well, I hate to, I know they're kind of like children for you, but I mean, what's a song that we could go out on and you could introduce for us?
I would say the song that they'd always close their shows with, and that's what we're going to do. It's probably one of the most beautiful ballads ever. It's called "Let It Be Me." The song only reached number 10, but to me, as far as I'm concerned, it was one of their probably their best song. "Let It Be Me." It's the words and the harmonies are just amazing.
And we've got Todd Eckart here, and he's doing this Everly Brothers tribute. We can't do prices, Todd, but tell me the other details if people want to go to the show.
The doors open at Clyde tomorrow at 5. You can get your ticket there. The tickets go on sale at 5, and then with that ticket price, you get free hors d'oeuvres from 5:30 to 6:30, and then the show starts promptly at 7, and it's about an hour and a half show. So you still have your weekend to do whatever, but I think it's going to be. I think we're going to have a full house, and it's downstairs at Clyde in the machine shop, the big, huge room. And there's going to be round tables, and you can order food down there as well. So those are all the time.
It's a night out. This is a night out.
This is a date night out, yes.
Date night out. Todd Eckart, thank you so much for joining us and talking about this music history. Todd, that was a half hour that we just spent. It just flew by talking about music and playing some old songs.
Just like that. Gosh, JP, thanks for calling me. Okay. I really appreciate it.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You bet, buddy.
Todd Eckart, musical performer. And we'll take the Everly Brothers up to news at the top of the hour here. This is WGZS Cloquet.
And that you'll always let it be.
Hi, Ross Simpson. Both presidential campaigns